All right, everybody, welcome in. It is Load the Box. We are back to weekly content. It is me, Jordan Hawthorne. I am joined by everyone's favorite Vikings Lido, Hot Takeo. I don't know. I don't think you'll like Beat Lido doesn't really fit, but Will
I'm not
Goodwin.
there yet. We'll
Yeah,
get there.
Will Goodwin. Find him on Twitter at Will Bad Luzo, and check out the Bad Luzo blog. Get those out of the way quick. It's training camp season. The pads went on today. This will come out in a couple days. So the pads went on to Monday. It's chugging along. The Hall of Fame game is on Thursday. So we're going to talk about a little bit of what the first week of training camp without the pads looked like, and there's some guys that I think I'm super high on, Ivan Pace, that are impressing, and that's exciting for me. That's very exciting for me. There's also, Jaron Hall is looking good. And then the defensive backs room, we'll get into all of that kind of stuff. But Will, I'll start with this. I know you're feeling a little under the weather. Thank you for being here still. What do you want to jump into?
Content is king. I mean, nothing can stop the content train, so we got to be here. Let's start with Danielle Hunter. It's kind of the elephant in the room. Big news, frankly, from Vikings camp early Sunday. Danielle agreed to that 1 year, $20 million extension. Not really even extension, just more like a restructure, frankly, because he's still going to be a free agent after this season. So really, thinking about it in simple terms, it's just a pay bump. He's making more money this year, and I think it's probably good for both sides. Frankly, Kevin O'Connell talked about it today in a very solution-oriented mindset, like he likes to, and the way he talked about it was one of this was a solution that's good for Danielle Hunter and a solution that's good for the Minnesota Vikings. And I agree. I wrote a piece a couple weeks ago, maybe it was a week ago, about kind of this sticky situation of Hunter and the contract and the Vikings and where do we go from here. And I sort of stressed the importance of pumping the brakes, like it was pretty clear the Vikings were doing. And sort of the warning signs that Danielle Hunter just sort of carries with him, the baggage of, injuries. Frankly, that's kind of it. Injuries and age. And he's still in his 20s, so you would imagine he's still got a year or two left of high-level football. And it appears that that's what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and the Vikings front office kind of looked at this as well. They were hesitant on the long-term deal, it appears, and they really decided just to throw a bunch of money at him for this year. And frankly, it's a really good idea. They had about $19 million of cap space for this season just sitting there. In a sense, you might as well spend it on your best pass rusher. So, because they weren't going to go out and sign, another big name free agent or anything. So, if my math is accurate, they'll still have like maybe $5 million or something that they could spend if they wanted to. Dalton Reisner, the offensive guard from the Broncos, is visiting the team this week. So if you want to sign him, there's still some money sitting around. So anyway, all of that being said, it seems like a good deal for the Vikings. You don't sort of put a big, price tag on a future asset that you're not really sure is going to come to fruition. And for Danielle Hunter, he sort of gets a prove it chance of, he gets his money, but he also will get a chance then next off season to make more of a long-term deal if he has the year that he does. Yeah. Before I dig into more of it from Hunter's side, I want to get your perspective on if you think this is a good deal for Danielle Hunter, if you think this is maybe something he begrudgingly signed or reluctantly signed, or if he was excited to just get it done and go play football.
I think he was excited to get it done and to go play football. And I try to. Unfortunately, I'm one of those fans that immediately assumes that every player wants to play for, a ham sandwich and $50, and everybody's all about winning Super Bowls. They don't care about, money or anything. That's not how the world of football goes. And so But I do think that Danielle Hunter takes this deal. It makes him like the 8th highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. He's there with like Bradley Chubb and some of these guys, and like you look at his production, and his best season was like 13.5 sacks, which is a pretty good season, but like he's never really gotten like the 22 sack season that some of these guys that are like, you know, like the TJ Watts, the Bosas, like he's never gotten like this elite production. And then you also factor in the injuries, and the Vikings will probably, I'm assuming, kind of frank about that in saying, you know, like, look, man, we are 75% sure that you just got unlucky 2 years in a row. You had, you know, the neck thing, and then you had, you know, whatever else took you out for the season. It was just a bad break 2 years back to back. He played every game last season. He had a really good, you know, percentage of snaps played and everything like that. It's not like he was a rotational guy, right? He was a every down defensive end, a linebacker in this new system, but pass rusher. And he stayed healthy, and he was effective for most of the season, and he got 10.5 sacks. So he gets to be paid, you know, in the top 10, which is, I think, important to him to get his money. And he also he had a quote in his like press conference after signing the contract where he said he wants to be a Viking forever. He wants to retire a Minnesota Viking. He doesn't want to go anywhere. And so it kind of, I think, it opens the door for the Vikings. One, there's going to, I mean, I want to say there's going to be a lot of money freed up when Kirk leaves, but there's still $28 million dead next season, so I don't know what the Vikings are going to do. But let's pretend we don't live in a salary cap world for just a second. It makes it to where if let's say he gets banged up again, the Vikings can come to him and say, well, you got banged up. We want to keep you. Let's give you a 2-3 year deal, you know, decent value, make you like a top 15 guy. And you can stay a Viking for the rest of your career. On the flip side, let's say he stays healthy and he gets 17 sacks this season. Then he can go to the Vikings and say, well, that's 2 straight years that I've been healthy. I just got you, 17 sacks. You know, we won a Super Bowl. How are you going to compensate me now? And then the Vikings can figure out what they're going to do, whether, you know, with the money. And that gets into Cousins extensions and all this kind of stuff that, you know, moving money around and capology and all that fun game that I'm not an expert in and I won't pretend to be. So I think it's a good deal. He's going to be in the NFL for a while longer. He's not just going to, like, if he gets banged up in week 2, he's not just going to flame out and never play a snap again. Like, there are going to be teams that sign him to, even if it's 1 year, you know, $5 million, $6 million deals. Like, he's going to make, you know, money. Like, he's fine. Like, I'm not worried about, you know, I'm not worried about Danielle Hunter's money.
Yeah.
But I do think that quote of I want to be a Viking forever is worth, I just want to pass that over to you because I'm a gambler. I mean, like, would you bet on that? Would you bet? Maybe not even a Viking forever, but is he a Viking next season? Do you think that maybe happens, or do you think he's gone after this year?
It's a really good question. It's so hard to tell because, like you're saying, it so much depends on his health. And I would imagine that if he puts up another season, like if he puts up like a 15 plus sack season, and comes to the Vikings and says, "All right, I want 25 for 3 years, 75 total or so," they probably won't re-sign him. Like Kwesi is big on value, and I think in this sense, $20 million for 1 year of a 29-year-old pass rusher, that should be pretty good value as long as he doesn't get hurt. But more years beyond that, at a high price tag, probably will be something that they balk at. So I don't want to make any predictions on this, frankly, just because I see it as a injury. Injuries will dictate a lot of this, and if he stays healthy, I would imagine that he'll have a pretty productive season. So it's really hard to say. I would like to see him back at a reasonable cost, but I am not attached to the idea of keeping him forever if he's asking for a price that is too steep.
I think where it gets really awkward is, let's say he has the exact season he had last year. Well, he gets you 10 sacks, 10.5 actually, but let's he gets you 10.5 sacks, and he stays healthy. But like, are you gonna pay a 10.5 sack guy who's about to turn 29 Are you going to give him
Yeah.
25 million? I don't think so. And then
Yeah.
maybe he thinks it's the system. It just gets messy, and so ideally, I kind of said something last week about, and it's funny that the deal got done, when it did, but I said something about how this Daniil situation might not have a bow on it. It might tone into a mid-season holdout. It might tone a little ugly.
Yeah.
And obviously this season it does it. The bow is on it now, but like the bow could very quickly fly off of this present.
Yeah.
Unless he's either going to have a really, really good season or a really bad season, and then it's obvious what the Vikings will do. But if he has like what he did last year, then I don't think it's so obvious, and back to the negotiating table we go. And then you'll have a team like Buffalo come flying in, and they'll be like, "We'll give you the $25 million," and he'll leave because money talks. So
Exactly.
glad
It
he's
is
back,
interesting though. It is interesting though that our highest paid offensive player and our highest paid defensive player have both said they want to retire as a member of the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, we have the number one training facilities, and we're like the best team in the world according to that like Players Anonymous.
Exactly. It is really interesting that like Minnesota sports teams have so long had this reputation of being the place you want to leave, and our quarterback, who is a television sensation and is now number 42 in the NFL according to the NFL players when it comes to top 100, and their best pass rusher, both are saying, "Hey, I'll retire here." It's just interesting. It's
I think so too.
Oh, how the turntables.
It's the lunch ladies, I think. It's that Minnesota nice, that Midwest nice, the lunch ladies.
It's gotta be.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins and Daniil Hunter are like, gosh, you just don't see that. When I was at Daniil Hunter was like, when I was at LSU, they were throwing slop on the plate and they're giving me 5-course meals, whatever. I do think that, and I just have to get this off my chest into a microphone, or else I'll feel bad. The fact that Eric Kendricks is on the NFL top 100 list, and I believe he's higher than Harrison Smith, just goes to show that list is nothing, but it is to me like the Pui season. It is the NFL's way of being like, we know you need something to hold you over until you get to watch, me and my brother call it the Postal Delivery Service Bowl, which is the Hall of Fame game, because it's just a bunch of UPS and FedEx drivers. And so they hold you over
after a week of training camp.
Yeah, like they give you a week of training camp and they say like, hey, your safety is the 59th best guy in the NFL, and it's like, oh my gosh, and like they show highlights, and it's like a way to get amped for football. And I used to buy into it a lot, and now I don't at all. But
no.
You did bring up, you said the Magic Wilds training camp. It's happened. There's been a week. Jaren Hall is going to be the Vikings' Tom Brady. He's a tiny Moman Tom Brady. I don't think he's actually. I don't know that he's Moman. And
I think he actually is, because he, I believe, post high school went on his 2-year mission. I could be wrong on that.
So I knew he went on a mission. It doesn't matter. Like I don't care what religion the guy is, but like, it is pretty cool that he's getting such positive feedback, if you will, out of camp. And it looks like I've got Will frozen here. It's just not a load the box without a little bit of technical difficulties. But Jaren Hall, coming out of BYU, I was a pretty big fan of him. I kind of thought he would go in like the third, fourth round maybe. And the Vikings took him in the 5th round. I thought that was really good value. And he's kind of doing exactly what you would expect from a 25-year-old rookie who played a lot of college ball. And not at like, it's not like he went to Southern Mississippi Tech. He went to a college. And so it's impressive, but it's also, you see this with older rookies sometimes where they come in and they look really good for a rookie, but they don't really take that next step, if you will. It's kind of like they are already what they will become. And so maybe that's what it is with Jaren Hall, and maybe that's why he's coming in and he's dropping dimes to guys, and he's, an expert at talking to the media, and he seems like the quarterback of the future. The problem is he's 25, and I don't know how much development there's going to be there with him. But hopefully there is some, and, who knows? Maybe he's a diamond in the rough. I just had to shout it out that, I was kind of right. I think he's the backup. I think he's a solid emergency quarterback for us this season. Have you held any names that you want to shout out, or do you want to talk about Jaren Hall?
Well, I mean, I can I can just quick touch on Jaren Hall. The one thing that, always stands out to me with players, young players especially, quarterbacks even more, is their ability to articulate themselves and be, like you said, know how to talk to the media from day one. He is a consummate professional.
Yeah.
And he carries himself like that. And he is present and, joyful and ready to take your questions, but not exuberant, not over the top. He's just like calm, cool, collected, has a smile on his face. So he is exactly the kind of guy you want playing quarterback. Now it just totally depends on his skill development and how this season, learning from Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings offensive staff to see how much he can continue to grow, because like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, this season and the future of the Vikings quarterback situation, this is the hinge point, right? It's, if Kirk is amazing and leads us to the Super Bowl, then you're going to want to probably re-sign him. But if he shows a decline and he shows some age and whatever, maybe he gets hurt for the first time in his career, who knows? What you see from Jaren Hall is very important. And so, it could be the difference between moving up to draft someone like Caleb Williams or Drake May and sticking with Jaren Hall next season if Kirk is not your guy long term. So it's a very important storyline for a team that just won 13 games and has a 4-time Pro Bowl quarterback and has the best receiver in the NFL. It's a very important storyline for a team in that situation. It's kind of odd to watch the QB2 battle.
Yeah, I want to cut in really quick just to say,
yeah,
I feel like there are going to be people that hear us talking about Jaren Hall and they're like, he's a mid-round quarterback. They never walk out. Why are you even wasting your breath? The Atlanta Falcons are probably going to roll out Desmond Ridder, who was a mid-round quarterback out of, UC, my neck of the woods. But, he's probably going to start for them. And I believe Washington is probably going to start, what's his name? Thank you, Sam Howell, who was also a mid-round pick guy. And so, this happens. This is a thing where, you draft somebody, they come in, they kind of impress you. The difference is the Vikings have had, good quarterback play the last 2 years. Out of Kirk Cousins, but they still might move on from him just because of money and whatnot. And so I do just want to point out that as crockpot Cousins hater as it sounds, this is a real thing that might be happening in front of our eyes. It should be given weight.
And it's very important, even in just taking the side note of Jaren Hall. We're not even saying that he's going to be a top 15 quarterback ever. Ever meaning in that season that he's playing it. We're not even saying that. We're just saying can he get to the point where he can be a competent quarterback to roll out there in week 1 if you have to. By no stretch are we, insinuating that he is going to be the next Fran Tarkington or anything like that. I know Jordan jokingly calls him Tom Brady. We're not saying that.
No.
What we're saying is that, do the Vikings potentially have their next starting quarterback in the building already? And starting quarterback does not equate to any sort of, accolades or Hall of Fame or anything like that. But can you be a quarterback that can lead a team in a franchise and, lead a competent team at that? So it's interesting. It's a very interesting kind of side plot to this whole season for sure.
Yeah, and I think with I think, and I hate to someone at I think it was Purple Daily said his response to people saying it's training camp, they're not wearing pads. They said well, he could do bad. He could look bad without pads on and stuff like that.
Exactly.
I can't remember what I saw a clip on Twitter of that, and I was like, yeah, no, that's really accurate. That's a really accurate take, and that's why I'm trying to give credit where credit is due for the take. But the fact that he is looking good after what this franchise went through, and I say went through it was, it's the equivalent of stubbing your toe on a nightstand. We drafted Kellen Mond. Everyone got excited that Kellen Mond is the new Dak Prescott. And he's going to be good. And then Kellen Mond just wasn't good. And he couldn't make throws. And he was athletic, but he stunk. He wasn't good at all. And so the fact that Jaren Hall is impressing, the media stuff is just kind of the gravy on top, in my opinion. It's like he knows what it's like you ask a question and he knows what he's supposed to say, which is just crazy of someone that has never really done this. So he's a grown up, and I think he could, be a good backup, maybe even a little something extra. And so it's fun. It's fun to talk about. He's going to be the next Tom Brady. I'll say it.
He's clearly a smart guy.
Yeah.
So you got that part right for sure. The thing that you mentioned that's just funny, and this is off of the Jaren Hall topic, is just, the idea that before the pads come on, everybody looks great, you know, and somebody makes a diving interception and it's like, oh my gosh, they got the next Darrelle Revis, or, Lewis Cine makes a play on a ball and everyone's like, oh, he's back, he's healthy, he's ready to go, and all these things. And of course that's great. You'd rather see these guys make plays, look sharp, rather than look awkward and out of position with no pads on. One guy that I just want to mention, because he was kind of the media darling for the first few days, was Jalen Nailor. Made some good plays, showed off his speed a little bit. He was kind of getting all the Twitter hype. Yeah.
Jalen Nailor too.
Yeah.
He's also kind of impressing in training camp. It's like, holy crap, maybe the Eagles just can't develop wide receivers good. Oh, well.
But then unfortunately, Jalen Nailor, I guess he had a contested catch in practice the other day, banged his leg with the defensive back, and he's going to be kind of day-to-day with a little bit of a leg injury. Nothing bad, I don't think, but he's going to have to sit out a little bit. So something to monitor. Shouldn't be a big deal. But what specifically have you noticed from Nailor or Reagor, or our guy Jordan Addison in this first week that is exciting?
I think it's worth bringing up that Jordan Addison is taking some punts, and he's not the only guy taking punts. They're giving sounded like they were giving 7 guys opportunities to catch punts, but Addison did take a few punts back in college, and so I think they're just kind of exploring that. I think it's mainly as you remember whenever Adam Thielen took some punts back, and it was really weird because he was that wasn't his thing. I think it's kind of that vein where it's what if Jalen Reagor muffs 2 punts in a game?
Sure.
And we are nah, you're not going back out there in this game. We need a backup punt returner almost. Yeah, and so I think they're kind of, I think that's why Addison is fielding those. But I think that, Reagor is shockingly and again, I'm not there, I'm in Cincinnati, I have a day job and I have a family to take care of and everything, but from everything that I'm seeing on the Twitter and on the social media machines, he's looking good. He's looking like a first round pick should look, and Jalen Reagor, that is, and saying that about a guy who I've said multiple times this offseason wasn't going to make the team. I didn't know why he was on the team. We could replace his punt returning duties and find someone that was, just as good or, maybe better than him at that, and maybe they can even bring added value elsewhere. I just didn't get it, and so the fact that he's impressing in camp is good for him. He had the Vikings posted a video on their Twitter of him making a jumping kind of contested catch, and he went up and got it, and again, no pads on, everybody looks great, but he's making plays, and so that's impressive for him. And Nailor, like you said, kind of got banged up at the end of last week, didn't seem too serious. I don't even think he got helped off really. There was a backup tackle Vadarian Lowe, I think, got helped off the field with an injury, and that seemed a little bit more serious than Jalen Nailor's, where his was just banged his leg up. They said, okay, you're done for the day, and then I'm sure he'll be fine. So I do think it's interesting, something that I think is getting blown up, and it doesn't need to be at all. Jawan Johnson? Williams, thank you. Jawan Williams is the stouting corner in nickel. He's stouting outside. And everybody was oh my gosh, he's going to be the stouter. And that means that, everybody else that we drafted last year is a bust. And, Lewis Cine isn't taking first team reps. And that means that he's a bust. And I'm not quite there yet, just because, it's the beginning of training camp. I think that Jawan Williams knows the scheme that Flores wants to run. And so he's kind of showing guys, leading by example almost. They're putting them out there like, hey, show these guys how it's done. Let's get all these young guys brought up to speed. And I do think he'll get replaced by a Caleb Evans, Andrew Booth, one of these guys before the season starts. I do want to talk about Lewis Cine, Andrew Sendejo, if you will. It is telling that, like, it seems like it's Harrison Smith, Cam Bynum, and then Josh Metellus, like, when they go to a 3 safety set. That's concerning to me. And I don't want to overblow it because there's no pads on and yada yada whatever. He was a first round pick. He needs to be. He made a diving interception, I'm pretty sure, and he's making plays, and he seems like he's rehabbed that leg back to being 100%. He needs to like get on the field this year. If he doesn't get on the field this year and he's riding the bench behind Cam Bynum and Josh Metellus, something's up. Like it's EO2. He's a first round pick. Yeah. It's EO2. He has to. We traded back with the Lions, a division rival, the division favorite. We were comfortable moving back, and we were like, oh yeah, Lewis Cine, we're confident that he'll be. That's bad. That's really bad. So I'll move the panic meter up to like yellow for Lewis Cine officially now on this show. What do you take? Like, what's your take on Lewis Cine and kind of the defensive backs as a whole?
I am not concerned about Lewis Cine yet. I think I would have been more concerned, and this sounds a little strange, but I think I would have been more concerned if he didn't have the injury. If he hadn't had the injury and never saw the field, I think we'd both be sitting here kind of scratching our heads and having a lot more questions about, like, can this guy actually play? We had a terrible defense last year. Why didn't he see the field? However, I think because he is, in some senses, still having to rehab that leg. Yes, he's a full go. Yes, he's out there all the time. He's not being held back in practice. The coaches also have to understand that, like, this guy hasn't really played football in a year. And so you got to get him fully ramped up physically and to the point where, football reps are just normal. Whereas these other guys, were taking reps all throughout January and then, so they had much less of a break in terms of, just actual football activity. So I will be more concerned if it's a month from now and the preseason is over and we're talking about week 1 and Lewis Cine still looks bad. I will be a lot more concerned then. But like we're saying, a week into training camp, 1 day of pads, I am going to, I'm a little more optimistic, or just kind of, cautiously optimistic maybe. That said, not having seen him live yet, in the last week. The defensive backs, what I have been hearing about those guys is just sort of the attention to detail and the will to learn. I think all of those young guys are being given a lot of credit from the coaching staff of, getting in and grinding and really wanting it. Brian Flores today specifically mentioned how a Caleb Evans, guy that I really like from last year's draft, is showing a lot of just like drive and determination and clear desire to want to be better. And, you think like, oh, that's, no duh. He plays football. This is his job. However, with these guys, you can't assume that everyone's going to have this drive. And so for a guy that had a couple concussions last year, missed a lot of time because of it, it's exciting to see him, back with a smile on his face and that sort of, drive and need and desire to get better. So I think if the Vikings defensive backs are going to improve this season, that has to be a constant starting now and going throughout, January. They got to get better every week because these guys are going to be playing some of their first snaps in the NFL. And apart from Byron Murphy and Jawan Williams, no one's really played. And so these cornerbacks they're all wet behind the ears. The good thing about that, what I will say is that when you have young and athletic and energetic guys, you're going to get guys who play fast and aggressive, and that hopefully should fit into the Flores mentality as long as it doesn't become reckless. Flores himself has made it very clear that he is not reckless, but when you get a couple 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds who want to show what they can do, you could get some overplays and some bad risks or whatever, but that's part of the learning process. So last thing I'll say is that they're still working out sort of the details of where Jay Ward is going to play. He played a couple different positions in college, I guess sort of all over the defensive backfield in college, and so he's someone that I think they're trying to figure out where he fits best. I would imagine that if and when he sees the field, especially in preseason, I would imagine they're going to let him play different spots. They're probably going to have a lot of these guys play some different spots. No, they're not going to throw a Caleb Evans at safety, but they'll probably put him in the nickel. They'll probably put Mekhi Blackman in the nickel. If you want to see what these guys can do on different spots on the field, because there's so many young guys, there's so many guys trying to prove themselves and earn their spot that if they can be flexible and slide around, they'll be that much more valuable. So I think that'll be important not only for Jay Ward, but for all these guys.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, we call it at my work, and I think this is common across all industries, but it's like cross training, right? You learn how to do other people's jobs. That way, if they go on vacation, you can do their job for them. And I like the fact that the Vikings are going to test out, Mekhi Blackman, who everybody said coming in, like, yeah, he's an outside corner. He won't play the slot. No, throw him in the slot. Why not? What's it going to hurt? Yeah. Tell him don't go out there and blow your Achilles, but go play, nickel and see if you can do it. And so I like this idea of, we really don't know what we have. Like you said, outside of Byron Murphy, Byron Murphy is going to be a starting outside corner unless we're in the nickel package, and then Byron Murphy is going to go inside. I think that's the one thing we know about this defense in the secondary. That and Harrison Smith is going to do Harrison Smith stuff. But, other than that, it seems like it's a lot of question marks. I unfortunately really hope that I can be saying, week one, that. And this is not a Cam Bynum hate thing, because I like Cam Bynum. I think he's a good player. But, I hope that we are, talking about maybe trading Cam Bynum for, maybe a pick next season. Something along those lines, because Lewis Cine has just kind of stepped up. Because I do want to see, obviously I want to see my favorite team's first-round draft pick from last season play and be a good first-round draft pick, because remember, we traded out of the spot with Detroit, and then 2 picks later, Kyle Hamilton went, and he was the best safety in the NFL last season as a rookie. So we could have had that, and we didn't take it. Because safeties aren't important, or at least that's what analytics say. But safeties aren't important until you take a safety and he's not panning out. So, I like I said, it's at yellow. There's orange and then there's red. Okay, so we went from green to yellow. I'm not freaking out, but I do think that's something to watch. Vikings' first preseason game is a week from Thursday night.
That's insane.
I know.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it is the Hall of Fame game. It is the Jets and the Browns, the Postal Service Bowl, and then a week after that, the Vikings play at 9:00. First preseason game. We'll get to see a lot of Jaron Hall in that. We'll probably get to see a lot of Dwayne McBride. These are my final thoughts, by the way.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you guys are tuning in to those games. I think that it's. Go ahead.
I was going to say, who are you most excited to see
Jaron
in
Hall.
First preseason game?
Yeah, it's not close. And I was joking with one of my buddies who's a Bengals fan before the show tonight, and we were playing video games, and I said, yeah, the Vikings' first preseason game is Thursday, and he was like, it's preseason. Why do you care? And I was like, well, when you, one, Vikings podcaster, and two, maybe more importantly, a Vikings fan who hasn't been crazy about Cousins in your life since he's been a Viking, you start to really pay attention to the backup quarterback, especially whenever you spend months saying, yeah, I really like this Jaron Hall kid out of BYU. Call me, I just like him. I like how he plays, blah, blah, blah. He's got a good arm, blah, blah, blah. And then the Vikings take him, and you're like, well, hang on. Now it's like I'm vested. I am very vested. I'm living vicariously or vicarious. I don't know what it is. I'm living through him, my Vikings dreams. And I want to see him play well. I want to see him have the Kellen Mond play where he ran around and scrambled for 50 seconds and then threw the ball 15 rows up in the seats. I want to see him have that play but finish it. Like, I want there to be some, like... I want Cousins to play with some fire under his hind end this season. There's some benefit to that, I think. Greg Joseph seems to like really clutch up whenever we bring in another kicker.
Yeah.
It's the second we bring in a kicker, Greg Joseph goes, 9 for 9 on field goals and extra points.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like he can't miss. I want to see Cousins play with a little bit of fire under him. Get Cousins his own version of Cousins and let him be RG3. Let him know that, hey man, like you gotta make some decisions and you gotta risk it and you gotta go out there and play like the 42nd best player in the NFL, damn it. And so I'd like to see Jaron Hall. I don't think, Nick Mullins is going to put that pressure on him. So I'd like to see Jaron Hall in the preseason do that. Dwayne McBride is also a guy who he's just fun. He's just a fun running back. And I think he's going to be fun in the preseason going up against, the 5th string defense, just trucking guys and running around guys. I think he'll be exciting to watch. But who are you excited to see?
I think because it's like, the area of most concern for us, I'm most interested in seeing the cornerbacks. Yeah. Probably specifically Mekhi Blackman. Probably just because of where he was drafted. But, like, I am very curious to see how he pans out. Again, Andrew Booth and Caleb Evans, they'll see snaps in preseason. I'm almost positive. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. Guys like Jay Ward, I'm also very interested to see, like I said, with his versatility, what they do with him and how he performs. I think, sort of as a conglomerate, it's the defensive backfield that I'm just most interested in seeing. Because, of course, we're not going to see Smith. We probably won't see a whole lot of Bynum, to be honest. Even if he doesn't start, I don't really know what benefit you get out of playing him in the preseason. Maybe you get a little bit with a new scheme or something, but just in general, the defensive backfield. Kind of the no-duh one, if he gets snaps, is Jordan Addison. I think just because I think there's all these spicy little, 7-second clips on Twitter of him, juking somebody out of their shoes and then, catching a nice sideline completion and stuff. But like, I'd like to just, it's just fun to see these young athletes run around and do impressive things. But, in terms of actual, meat for seeing how the season will progress, it's for sure the defensive backfield.
Yeah, and I think
guys can do.
Make sure you put an asterisk. This is not you. This is not a you thing. This is just like the fan listening. Put an asterisk on what you see out of the defense in the preseason, because remember,
absolutely,
we're not showing our cards, so we're gonna be running very base defenses. Like, we're not gonna be getting complex. We're just gonna, and that's why I think it's fun to watch wide receivers and quarterbacks, because like you should excel going up against a base cover 2. You should know how to beat that. And so that's why I think that, like, even if Jaron Hall balls out, that doesn't mean he's going to be great. That just means that he balled out probably against the 2nd, 3rd, 4th string guys that won't have jobs, and guys that are trying to run basic cover 2, cover 3 man defenses. And so, but still, you got to run those coverages well to run the advanced stuff well. It's almost like the defense is playing with training wheels on. And so I would love to see nothing more than a Jaron Hall to Jordan Addison touchdown in the preseason. I don't think we'll get it. I don't think that they will line up together, but that'll be my final thought. I want to see a Jaron Hall to Jordan Addison touchdown in the preseason. Other than that, shop unified. Follow the show at LTB Vikings. I think I said it once already, but for real, go follow Will. What are you doing? If you're watching the show right now, ask yourself this question. What are you doing? You're not subscribed. So subscribe to the dang channel. I shouldn't cuss. Well, not a cussing show, but subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitter at LTB Vikings, and follow my man over here at Will Bad Lose. Bad Lose, right?
Lose.
I said
Yep.
lose earlier. And so someone who is like a fake account of you is just getting tons of follows off of that, I bet. But
Tons.
Tons. I mean, millions. The millions and millions. But yeah, man, those will be my final thoughts. I'll let you take us home. But there was one more show, and then it's Vikings preseason. That's just how it goes. I don't make the rules. I just enforce them. That's how it goes. Father Time is undefeated. So we'll see you guys next week.
It's exciting. I the calendar creeps up on you once you get to the end of July, and all of a sudden calendar flips over and you got a preseason game. It's exciting time. I think, I reiterated last week the importance or the, opportunity to go see training camp. Great experience. Do it if you can. The preseason, if you want to see sort of the, behind the scenes, what people have been doing, putting in the work, and the fruit of that sort of in preliminary stages, if you want to get a grasp on how this roster is going to shake out and be able to have an idea of who's going to be on the team come September 10th, preseason games are actually very important. As an average fan, you don't really care too much about it because it's not real. It doesn't count. Teams can go 0-4 in the preseason and win the Super Bowl, and 4-0 and win 3 games in the regular season. It doesn't matter in that sense, but what you get is the development that these guys are putting in the background. So it's exciting. First NFL snaps for a lot of these rookies. So tune in, even if late 9:00 game on that Thursday. I'd encourage you all to tune in and watch the game.
At least watch the highlights. The highlights.
Yeah. Absolutely. Something I do too, pro tip, I record the games and then I can just zoom through the preseason games. You sort of just, you watch every snap, you skip the timeouts and the halftime fluff and stuff. You cut through it and you can watch the game in under 2 hours. So, that's all I got. Oh, actually, final thought, something I learned today, courtesy of Gabe Henderson of the Vikings Entertainment Network. The way to pronounce the Vikings linebacker number 33 it's Asamoah. It's not Asamoah. So we've been saying it wrong this whole time. We're going to change that, and I hope everybody else does too.
It's actually Danielle Hunter.
Is it really?
No, it's not. But wouldn't that be hilarious? It's spelled that way. I checked the spelling 3 times before I put the little thing down on the ticker, because I was like, it's not Danielle, right? It's Danielle. And I was like, no, it's Danielle. It's spelled Danielle, but it's Danielle. So,
Yeah. So get the names right, people.
Yeah.
It's Brian Asamoah II. We're going to be doing that correctly for the rest of the season because he is most likely going to be one of the starting interior linebackers for the Vikings. So it's important.
Oh, one more thing. If you haven't watched those, I'm sorry. I meant to say this and I forgot about it until you said Asamoah. The Vikings have a thing on their YouTube called like Cutting It Up or something. And it's like they give their players chopping it up. Thank you. It is like they give their players haircuts and they have a conversation. Asamoah, Lewis Cine, Booth. Pretty good conversation. Listening to all of them talk, the chemistry that they have, like I want them all to be good at football because I want them to be Vikings forever after watching that. Like they were just entertaining. So definitely recommend going and watching that after you watch this video and hit subscribe.
And they call themselves the Trace Amigos, those 3.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful.
First, second, and third round picks from last year, I believe. So, hopefully this is the year that they blossom. They got the chemistry off the field. Let's hope it translates. That's all we got. We'll be back next week early to talk a little bit more about training camp, but mostly preview the Seahawks-Vikings preseason game, Thursday, August 10th at 9 p.m. Central Time. That's all we got. Skol, y'all.